In the latest CDC science update, they included an article about the waning antibody responses after receiving vaccination. It was a comparison of the antibody response to Pfizer and the AstraZeneca vaccine, and it showed that the responses are waning. The antibody levels are waning, and I gotta tell you, the inmates are running the asylum here. There was no indication. They do mention this in the article, but there's no indication as to whether or not it's clinically relevant. You take a pill, and the amount of the pill in your body wanes over the course of a day, but that doesn't mean that the pill has stopped working. The levels of the Pfizer vaccine never reached the levels of the AstraZeneca vaccine at its highest, and yet there's no reason to suppose that the AstraZeneca vaccine is not effective at all. So whether or not this is even a relevant study has yet to be determined, because we don't know what kinds of levels are required for a response. What we do know is that these people who have these waning responses aren't getting sick. So the question is still whether or not this is actually relevant, but nevertheless, this study is still going to be used as a reason to tell people that that we need booster shots and we need to mask up if we're in places where there's high levels of community spread, and it's getting pretty irritating. And there's no reason to suppose right now that that CDC guidance ought to be that people should be considering themselves not to be immunized, even with this Delta variant. And certainly there is no study to suggest yet that the waning levels of antibodies are a public health risk, and it certainly should not be used to determine that it is a individual health risk. If you're vaccinated, you're protected against COVID right now, as far as we know. So the study showing otherwise has yet to come out, and this new guidance suggesting that if you're vaccinated, you need to mask up as a matter of personal protection certainly is not forthcoming. But my cat is forthcoming, and it also as not. Another reason why it seems like the inmates are running the asylum is because there's no particular reason other than the ease of collection, the ease of doing the study. There's no particular reason to go based on antibody levels, because COVID is a viral pathogen, which means that it's mostly T cell and natural T cell mediated responses. It is a T cell response to the vaccine, or at least we suppose it is. Therefore, it should be, if we are going to be doing studies to determine whether or not people are actually going to respond to the vaccine or to previous history of infection, there should be some sort of it should become more common to measure the levels of reactive T cells, not reactive antibodies. So hopefully that's something that's actually going to change in the scientific community, particularly if the scientific community is actually going to start taking over in the studies, rather than relying on these bureaucrats who seem to be more motivated in pushing out sensationalist headlines instead of informative headlines. It would have been much nicer if we had seen a study that said levels are waning in the antibody response, but and here is the level that seems to be protective. This is the growth curve with regard to the antibody levels, and this is the expectation as to whether or not a single course of vaccination is actually going to be relevant in 5 to 10 years, and then we can determine whether or not we actually need booster shots and continued masking for people who are vaccinated. For people who aren't vaccinated, this is what you do. You go every year without getting your flu shot because you think it's going to make you sick or something, and maybe you get the flu, maybe you don't. I'm sorry. I'm not going to live my life masking up and constantly living a life of fear, nor would I expect anybody else to, simply to protect you in the name of public health. So, those are just my thoughts on this latest study.